Welcome back to another Book Talk with Tracy. This is the second segment talking about my book, My Mother the ManEater. Last time I talked a little bit just about the plot of the book briefly, that it's about a 40-something cougar who's out to find a relationship. And in the course of doing that, she discovers that God loves her no matter what she's done in the past. What's interesting about this book, well, there's a lot of things that are interesting about it, I guess, for me, having written it. But originally the title was called Mother of the Bride because as a mother whose daughters, she has 5 grown daughters, eventually those daughters all seem to take away one of her love interests, and they end up connecting with one of her boyfriends instead of with her, and getting married and things like that. And so I was thinking, well, she's always still just the mother of the bride. But that title just didn't sit quite well with me because I felt it didn't quite convey the message that this was a woman who was a cougar. She was a barracuda. She was that end of things, where she maybe wasn't the most reputable woman in a past life, and I just didn't feel like Mother of the Bride really conveyed that message. And so I was having a shower one time before the book was published, and it was like bling, it just literally popped into my head during a shower. That's the only time that's ever happened to me as far as a book goes. But it's actually the truth. I'm not saying that to make anything up. That's what happened. And when I thought of that title and it just sprang to my head out of nowhere, it was like, yes, that is the perfect title for this book, because it is about a woman and her daughters, but it's also about the fact that she's, a bit of a barracuda, if you will. And I just hope that it was, maybe provocative enough to get people to pick it up. However, as I did mention, it really is about the love of Christ. It's about redemption. And I will say I've been very blessed and grateful for some of the feedback I've had over the years from people who say, this book really impacted me because of that message that God doesn't care about your past. He cares about your heart right now, And so for Jolene, the main character, even though she feels dirty inside a lot of times, although she projects this very put together, sexy woman, and she's always flirting with younger men, the fact of the matter is she really has a lot of shame and self-doubt in her life. And so, but God can take that, and he can use anybody, and he can redeem anybody. So for me, that's, I think, the really important part about the book. If I could just sum it up in one word, I'd say it's grace, right? It's the grace of God, because without it, Jolene probably wouldn't end up where she is. Now, speaking of the other characters, this is almost embarrassing to admit, but back in the mid 2000s, I really enjoyed playing The Sims. Don't know if anyone else was addicted to that particular little game, but one time I was playing and I had developed this very elaborate city with a lot of different people in it. And my goal at the time was I put all these 6 women who looked very similar, they all had blonde hair, in a house, and I was trying to get them married off. If you've ever played The Sims, there's different ways of doing that, whatever. Well, that's where the characters came from. Oh my gosh, are you kidding? It's the truth. So the initial idea for the book came from playing The Sims, yes. But we have 5 daughters, and initially they all started with a J. We had Jolene, who's the main character. Then we had Jasmine, Jill, Jennifer, Ginger, and Jade. And if you read this particular version, the old version, which came out in 2010, those are the characters. Well, one of the things that I decided needed to happen when I republish this book, because it came out in 2010, I've got the rights back and I'm republishing it. I've learned a few things since then, and one of the comments was, it's really hard to keep track of characters when they start with the same letter. It's just one of those things that happens in our brains. So for those who who see this or read the book after this video comes out, I did take that to heart and I changed it. And instead, I did something that I thought would be clever that Jolene would do, because initially I thought, she's the type of person who would name her kids all with the same letter. Well, instead, she named her kids with names starting with A and then, ascending from there. So now we have Ashley, Bethany, Carly, Delaney, and Ebony. So they all have that sort of similar sound, but they start with a different letter, and hopefully that's going to alleviate some of the confusion for future readers who are reading the book. Other changes. This is a whopping book. It's quite long, and I might talk about that a little bit more, some of the slashes that happened even in the first edition, subsequently even more slashes coming out in the second edition. But I did learn, I've grown a lot as an author since then, and so, I think it's written, I think the writing is tighter of the new edition, and I just think it's a better book. So even though the story is the same from the first edition, the initial basic bones of the story, there are quite a few changes in terms of the writing style and just some other things like that I've learned. All right, I think I'm going to end it there. We've got one more session about My Mother the ManEater coming up next time. In the meantime, you can read more about it. Head over to my website, tracykrause.com, and I will see you next time with more about My Mother the ManEater on Book Talk with Tracy. See you then.